Welcome back and thank you for being with us this far. I am privileged to welcome our fourth speaker, being Geoff Brooks, who's the General Manager and Founder at First Step MEA. And just a little bit about Geoff. So, Geoff has lived and worked in the Middle East for over 15 years and has built a strong professional network throughout many industries, including the telecoms and finance. Having spent his entire career within the cybersecurity and RegTech software sector, and has a proven record in establishing a new niche in technologies within the region. So that is an interesting bio on itself. I'm excited to hear what he has to say for us, as he will be giving a talk on market surveillance regulations in a post-COVID world. How can RegTech help with trade and communication surveillance with home workers? Over to you, Geoff.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. Really appreciate it, and welcome everybody to the event today. Really delighted you can join us for this informative and novel way of getting together. And thank you to the FinTech team for hosting us today. It's been quite interesting sitting in some of the networking breakout sessions, listening to some of your challenges and interesting insights into your local regions within Africa. I'm going to avoid singing. Dr. Yin did an amazing job there. I'll skip that. But it was interesting to hear, from her about how fast the African banking market is growing, second fastest in the world, I think, and that really is really interesting and important to keep in mind. So our company, First Step MEA, has been in business for about nearly 3 years. We're based out of the UAE. You'll see on my slide a backdrop of Dubai Marina, constantly fast-changing environment, and a market that really is open to innovative technology. First movers in the financial services sector, with a lot of regulatory tech, a lot of fintech. Not afraid to take a step into the unknown and deploy new technologies. And the financial services sector is growing very fast in the region, across Middle East, and we see it across Africa as well. And along with that, becomes more regulation, and we're seeing a growing need for more market surveillance, and we're looking at how we can help our customers implement and benefit from different types of RegTech solutions and cybersecurity solutions to help them, satisfy the regulator and to satisfy their exchanges that perhaps they're members of. So we work closely with innovative companies, innovative technology vendors, and we try and sort of weed out what we feel is going to be appropriate for the local markets here in Middle East and Africa. And then we go talk to the regulators, and we try to help them, become, open to the need for different types of technologies to help with different challenges, such as market surveillance. So we're going to talk about, what is market surveillance? How is it now post-pandemic? What does it look like now? The key elements of market surveillance, which we'll talk about, including trade and communications surveillance, two very different things, but often the same teams within the banks are tasked with addressing both trade and communication surveillance. And then we'll have a quick glance at the regulators' challenges and how they're challenged with regulating communications and trade surveillance. And we'll hopefully pull together a few conclusions if we have time, and then wrap up for the panel discussion. So, as I said, my name's Geoff, and we've been running First Step MEA for 3 years. Mark Leverett, our VP of Technology, is also on the session. You may have been able to network with him on one of the breakout tables. We've both got a pretty strong background in communications, security, and surveillance. And we've been working with a number of trading institutions in the region for some time now. And I thought I'd just show you this picture here. This is what a trading floor used to look like pre-pandemic, right? And you'll notice a lot of screens on the trading floor there, lots of people, lots of telephones, lots of keyboards. And probably if you look up to the ceiling, you'll see lots of CCTV cameras, and you'll see that those phones there are all connected to voice recording devices. So all of the voice calls that they make to their clients are recorded. All of those trades that they make on those big screens, they're recorded as well. And so we have a fully compliant, highly secure trading floor. Just to gain entrance onto that trading floor, you'd probably need maybe fingerprint biometrics to access the floor. You might need to go past security on the ground floor to get into the building. There's a heck of a lot of investment in security and surveillance for that trading floor. And that will have been built over a number of years. And then guess what? We have a pandemic, right? And who would have thought that all those traders and all those salespeople are then being asked to work from home? And we've seen it, from companies like Twitter that have told their employees to never, ever come back. We've seen companies like JP Morgan, Schroders, as you see on the screen there, are now, suggesting that maybe a blend of working from home as well as maybe coming to the office once or twice a week is possibly the new norm. So now we've got those traders and those salespeople working from home, and we've made all that investment on that secure trading floor, and now we're asking them to work from home. And it's also seen a big uptick in the use of shadow IT solutions that have been being used by employees that haven't actually been sanctioned or bought by the IT department. And one of those great examples is WhatsApp. We're all using WhatsApp, and we're finding that our traders are sitting at home talking to their clients on WhatsApp, or WeChat is another one in Asia, or Telegram, another big one being used in Africa. I know is being used a lot, and as is WhatsApp. There was a recent survey just in the UAE a couple of months ago by a technology company here, and it identified that UAE employees admit to sharing business sensitive data on messaging apps. Believe it or not, it was up to 90% of employees admit to sharing business sensitive data on messaging apps. Now, I would like to think that everybody in the audience was not part of that 90%. But the reality is pretty much everybody in the UAE seems to admit to sharing this data. And that's quite scary, right? Because all of these employees now have been working at home for the last 18 months. So how on earth are we supposed to monitor and surveil the home worker that's using IT equipment that hasn't even been bought by the IT department themselves? And we'll come back to that and explore that a little bit more in more detail. So the regulator's got a big challenge on their hands, right? Huge challenge. Let's just pause for a second and look at a dictionary definition of market surveillance. Market surveillance is the prevention and investigation of abusive, manipulative, or illegal trading practices in the securities market. And we've seen a lot of the exchanges over here in the region embrace the need for market surveillance capabilities. And one of the exchanges that we've been working quite closely with over the last 18 months is DGCX, Dubai Gold and Commodities Exchange. And they released a guidance to their members on the importance of trade surveillance, monitoring those individual trades and how important that is, and how they look to their regulator, the Securities and Commodities Authority, who themselves typically align with European regulators like ESMA, the European Securities and Markets Authority. So we're seeing, in region, the exchanges looking to educate their members on the importance of market surveillance. And our job is to help those members, those banks, those broker dealers, those buy-side institutions to become and implement solutions to help them become more secure and more compliant. I'll give you an example of one particular requirement within ESMA. So ESMA, as I mentioned, the European Securities and Markets Authority. They have very strict regulations around MiFID II, and I'm sure most of you on here will have heard of MiFID II. Now, pre-COVID, one of the requirements within MiFID II is the ability to record mobile communications, mobile devices. And as we've seen how prevalent the smartphone usage is in Africa, in the Middle East. In fact, in the Middle East, I think most people carry two devices, an Android and an iPhone. Now, many of those second devices are actually corporately owned devices. Many organizations issue corporate devices for their employees to be able to conduct corporate activities on. Now, as I mentioned, ESMA talk about the need to record mobile devices. However, post-COVID, they recognized that everybody's working from home, and they released a public statement, as you can see a snapshot of that on the right, that simply states that if it's difficult for you to implement recording devices or recording capabilities for your employees whilst they're working from home, then we recommend you suggest to your employees that once they've had a conversation with a client, or they've had a conversation with one of their other employees, that they make written notes on the subject of that voice call. So we're asking traders to make written notes on the calls or conversations or WhatsApp chats they have with their clients. Now, any trader I've met is not in the habit of making written notes after every phone call. Things are moving way too fast for them to pause to make written notes. So there needs to be an alternative. And in the previous session, it was interesting to hear, the technology is out there, right? Embrace it. And that's what we try to do at First Step, is help our customers embrace it. And we've seen an interesting increase in the need, our clients looking for solutions to record mobile devices since COVID, around 170% increase since March 2020. So that is significant. I mentioned trade and communication surveillance. So in the trade surveillance piece, we're looking at covering all types of market manipulation, right? We're looking at market abuse. We're looking at intermarket sweep orders, or known as ISOs, spoofing, layering, wash trading. These are all market manipulation terms that any compliance officer will be very keen to try and monitor. And we work with companies that have implemented some fantastic machine learning and AI capability to better identify this type of market manipulation. We work quite closely with a company out of the US called Aventus that can help identify this type of activity. And they can also monitor the digital assets as well, which is a huge thing in the GCC. We're seeing that the UAE hoping to become the next Silicon Valley of the crypto world, and that's becoming a big reality, and we're seeing a big uptick in interest there. On the communication surveillance side, often that is the communications pre, during, and post a trade being placed on a trading platform. So the conversations that the trader's having before the trade is placed, the conversations the trader's having whilst the trade is being placed, and the conversations the trader is having with the customer after the trade is placed. And he or she might be having those communications over WeChat, WhatsApp, mobile voice calls, SMS messages. There's so many different platforms today that we can communicate with our customer through. And that's a great thing, but it means we need to monitor all these things, right? And the very latest ones that we're seeing in the region, I mentioned Telegram, Signal. Again, you know as well as I do, the consumer often drives this adoption with these chat platforms. If my kids are on a new chat platform, I probably need to think about how to use that platform. And if I'm using it, potentially my peers and colleagues might start using it as well. And my customers start using it. If my customer's using it, then I'm going to have to find a way of of adopting that tech to enable myself to communicate with them. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why it's such a big challenge to monitor all this stuff continually. So why do we need communication surveillance? Well, a recent stat we heard on a webinar we did quite recently from Infobit was that WhatsApp is now the most used platform in Middle East, North Africa. 50% of our clients now communicate through mobile and web. And on the mobile, that's often WhatsApp, right? So that's a huge number. And if we're all using it, that need to surveil and monitor on these platforms, it's absolutely a must. And many of our customers now have adopted this type of capability in region. Because if you don't do it, we're going to see incidents of banks and institutions being fined. And there's a couple of examples of some recent fines being laid out for individuals within banking organizations on that slide, which you can read there, I think. So it's out there and it's happening. So we see within First Step, we suggest to our customers to lay out a three-pillar approach to communication surveillance. Capturing the mobile is really important, right? Really important, because that's where we see a lot of the data being captured on that mobile device. I've got my mobile here running an Android. I'm talking to my customers on WhatsApp. I'm talking to them through SMS, voice notes. Really important piece to cover. Communication surveillance as a more broad requirement. So having the ability to capture all of your email communications, really important. On your trading platforms themselves, you'll have things like Bloomberg, NASDAQ, ICE, NICE. We need to be able to identify what all those chat platforms are and then find a way of bringing all that data together. And it could be that a lot of your communications is done in Afrikaans, right? So we need the ability to transcribe all of that Afrikaans perhaps into English, and then we need to index it all, and then we need to surveil. We need to be able to bring in your lexicons, for example. You may have 5,000 different words in a database that you need to search for that are interesting phrases, important phrases for you to monitor and surveil in real time. And we can use innovative AI and machine learning to do a lot of that work for us. And I think we're now able to transcribe in over 80 different languages. And that, that's really, really key for, global trading firms. Really, really key to be able to do that in a really fast way. And then what we need to be able to do is reconstruct based on a specific trade ID. So if you think about it, if my regulator comes to me and says, right, I'd like to know more about this particular trade, please, and here's the trade ID. You've got, in certain markets, right, we've got 72 hours to turn that information around. 72 hours. That's taking some of my clients today 3 months to turn that information around. And that's just not acceptable in under certain regulatory requirements, right? Central Bank of the UAE has just reduced that requirement from 90 days to 35 days. So now the banks are coming to us saying, you've got to help us. You've got to help us reduce that window from 90 days to 35 days. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But, as we heard, the technology is there. It really is there. So it's about how can we help our customers. So I'm conscious of time. I had a couple of concluding points. We do advise our customers to take a holistic approach to market surveillance, focus on trade and communications to get that whole helicopter view of activity. The people, process, technology thing, all very closely aligned, and we have to align those teams and that technology to ensure a successful project. It's important to listen to our customers more than ever. With everybody working from home, if your customers are saying they want to talk on WhatsApp, they want to talk in Telegram, we've got to think about how to make that happen. Otherwise, we've seen companies like BlackBerry over the years. You remember BlackBerry 15 years ago, proprietary operating system. They didn't want to embrace the idea of an open platform where developers could develop their own apps. And guess what? They got left behind. We've got to listen to our customers. Surveillance, context is key. Who said what, where, and when is so important. Just having the trade ID itself is important, but actually having some context around that. And that's why we work with companies like Aventus and VoxSmart to give us that context and that overall helicopter view around surveillance. Enable your clients to embrace new technology, new platforms. The text there will help you and support you in doing that. And finally, digital asset trading is fast growing, and it's something that we can absolutely help with. So, you know, that's 20 minutes, and we're hopefully in time. I would just finally offer you my contact details. I hope we've been able to connect with a number of you on LinkedIn, and we'd be really happy to go into any more detail on trade and communication surveillance, market surveillance, cybersecurity, and the regulatory landscape. Feel free to reach out. But it's been a pleasure and an honor to be presenting to you today. And back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Geoff. Before you leave the stage, we actually have a question from Matthew for you, and he's asking, what are the key challenges faced by surveillance or compliance teams today in the MENA area compared to those in the EU?
Well, it's an interesting one. So in the UAE, for example, we have quite a complex set of data privacy laws. And in fact, I think 3-4 days ago, they just released an update to their data privacy laws. And that can be quite challenging for communication surveillance. So we have to work really closely with not just the regulator. So there's regulators, you know, the Securities and Commodities Authority that I mentioned earlier. So, but we have to work closely with the regulator. We have to work closely with the exchanges themselves that take a lead from the regulators to be able to try to help them, you know, identify what's going on with, you know, what ESMA are doing in the realms of mobile surveillance, for example. Recording mobile devices, your immediate thought is, whoa, you know, that's a bit heavy, but, you know, and something that perhaps certain countries would not allow. And we must point out that when I mentioned many of our clients carry 2 devices, one of them being corporate devices. If it's a corporate device, certainly in Europe, if it's a corporate device, then it comes under the corporate IT policy, just as they're entitled to perhaps record activity on your laptop or record your desk phones. It's just another asset owned by the IT department, and it comes under that standard IT policy, as does the corporate device, the mobile device. So yes, and Michael, it's Matthew. It is challenging, and we have to engage with those regulators within all of the markets in the MENA region. So it's quite time consuming, but you know, it's work in progress. I hope that sort of answers your question.
Thank you so much, Geoff, for that. We are going to be taking a short break, and shortly afterwards, we will be moving to the panel discussion. So stay in tune. It's going to get even more interesting.